Oil traders are now pointing to an International Atomic Energy Agency report revealing Iran had expanded its nuclear uranium enrichment program, increased its nuclear work at its underground facilities. None of that can be good. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that the U.S. Pentagon is beefing up its Persian Gulf operations. All this as Iran threatens to cut off the Strait of Hormuz. At least that's the threat. 17 million barrels pass there every single day. And on top of all that, there's Syria. President now using strong words, and there are reports of weapons of mass destruction in Syria. So, here now we have R. James Woolsey, former director of Central Intelligence. He's now chairman of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Jim Woolsey, welcome back. You honor us. I appreciate it very much. Let me just ask you, the Wall Street geopolitical question, sir, is closing down or choking off the Straits of Hormuz. That would drive oil up to $200 a barrel. Is there any way that you, with your diplomatic wisdom and your experience in intelligence, can handicap that kind of choking off of the Straits of Hormuz?
I don't know. Harry the Horse, the Damon Runyon figure, said nothing what depends on humans is worth odds of more than 8 to 5. So I wouldn't give any more than 8 to 5. But if it does happen, I think what'll occur then is people will look to us to deal with it. And if the president's not ready, it could be a real debacle. I think that it would be relatively easy for us to take out those large number of small Iranian boats, gunboats, missile boats that might be used to close the straits. But we shouldn't just do that. If they take some action like that, by the way, we went to war in 1812 over freedom of the seas. This is an act of war to close the strait. I think that we ought to be ready to strike not just against their nuclear installations, but against the Revolutionary Guard, not against the infrastructure of Iran itself, but against the Revolutionary Guard in its various manifestations, its ballistic missile programs, its space program, etc., because it's the instrument of repression of the Iranian people. All the young people loathe it. It's corrupt. It's sort of a combination of Hitler's brown shirts and black shirts, and we ought to be ready to move against it, not against Iran itself, and not just against the nuclear installations.
And they're above ground. That thought just occurred to me. They're above ground, so that thing is hittable, if that's the right word. Do you think, Jim, do you think that's why we're getting this announcement reported from the Wall Street Journal on their website tonight, that we're moving more forces into the Persian Gulf? Do you think it's coming down to that?
Well, it may. I mean, Bud McFarlane and I wrote an op-ed a few weeks ago that said put at least 5 carrier battle groups in the Indian Ocean, move the B-1s and B-2s to Diego Garcia, get ready to go, but don't say a word. Go Teddy Roosevelt one better. Don't speak softly. Don't speak at all. Just let them know. They will know that we are moving in force and that we would be able to take action if the president decides to. This is a very big deal. This could be a move toward countries not responding enough and therefore letting Iran have, in a few months to a year or so, a nuclear weapon. And that means you're going to have nuclear weapons programs in Saudi Arabia, in Turkey, in Egypt, and so forth. This could be the tipping point for a nuclear Middle East, which would be a very, very dangerous thing for the entire world.
What a regime change in Iran, which is kind of what you're describing. If we hit the Revolutionary Guards and somehow manage to foster or spawn a regime change. A couple years ago, they're on the streets. We haven't heard much from that. We haven't done much in the U.S. to really help that. If we do, and we make it clear, would that end the nuclear threat in Iran? Do you think if you had a pro-democracy group, they would do business and come to their senses and come to the table, unlike the present crowd?
I think we're unlikely to get a change like that just by a change in personnel, say Rafsanjani coming back or something like that. But if there were enough of a change in Iran that the Velayat-e Faqih, the rule of the jurisprudential, as they call them, the mullahs, was effectively canceled out. The supreme leader, Khamenei, because the rest of the Iranian constitution is a perfectly reasonable constitution. It's having that rule of the clerics that tacked on top of it that creates the very difficult situation and potential chaos. So I think that we, could see a more fundamental change, but there's no way to bet on it. And I think the first step ought to be to essentially help the Syrian people throw off Assad, and not just to lead from behind, as someone in the White House put it, but to lead. And the other would be to really crack down on, finally, on sanctions. The SWIFT transfers, funds transfers, to cut off the Iranian central bank from that system, to basically really crack down on economic sanctions and put a lot of pressure on Iran as well.
All right, sir. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your wisdom. Former Central Intelligence Director James Woolsey, we appreciate it.